Where the hell is the Sustainer? Is Paimon her in disguise? Venti is closer to the heavenly principles than you think, and Ronova, stickler for the rules, is about to answer the Cryo-Archon's blasphemy. This is The Unlikely Genshin Gamer, and the new Teyvat Interlude trailer has dropped. They're not even playing anymore with these lore bombs, and I love it. Here are my first thoughts on what is probably the biggest reveal in Genshin's history so far. If you are already well versed in the lore, then welcome, well-esteemed colleague. Skip to this timestamp here if you like, for all the juicy theories. But if you'd rather have a recap, listen up while I bring you up to speed in the next 15 minutes. Then you can join into the discussion as well, because the more the merrier. It's a great time to be a lore player of Genshin Impact. Now, the biggest topic in this trailer is arguably the reveal of all the shades of the Heavenly Principles. So, let's start by recapping what they actually are. In Teyvat, the themes of reality have been broken up into 5 specific principles: time, space, life, death, and reasoning, or the mind. These principles match the types of artifacts we can harvest: the Cup of Enothem, or space, the Feather of Death, the timepiece of, well, time, the Flower of Life, and the crown or circlet of Logos, meaning the mind. In the beginning, the Heavenly Principles, or Primordial One, was made up of all these things. He was described as having wings and not looking particularly male or female at first. But then during his fight against Teyvat's native species, the dragons, he split himself up into 4 shadows and left the most powerful principle of reason to himself. Ishtaroth was the first shade we learned about, the ruler of time. She helped the people of Enkanomiya after they were abandoned in the Dark Sea with its terrors, and helped Raiden go back in time to give Inazuma a chance to not perish in the war against the Abyss invasion. She is known as the Thousand Winds, and Venti is one of those winds. You could say she has 1,000 forms of herself, and Venti is a powerful one of them. Ishtaroth was even worshipped in Mondstadt at a time herself, and you can see some of her design elements on this Temple of the Thousand Winds. Then we heard about the Shade of Life in Fontaine. Her name was originally Naberius. She conquered the original Hydro Dragon and took over the Primordial Seed to create life. She also actually made the first Hydro Archon, Egeria. And when Egeria made humans of her own, which was strictly forbidden, Naberius ordained that Fontainians had to be dissolved in the sea for their sins. But much later, Rhinedottir, the powerful Hexenzirkel alchemist who helped to bring down Khaenriah inadvertently, somehow devoured Naberius. Just before sending her greatest creation, Albedo, to Mondstadt to complete his final assignment, she found the heart of Naberius somehow and merged with her, gaining an almost split personality of sorts. The voice of Naberius constantly nags at her to keep her limitless appetite to experiment on living things in check. But Rhinedottir is the one really in control. So now, Rhinedottir has taken the place of this shade, which is pretty ironic considering she is one of the 5 sinners of Khaenriah, the life sinner actually. And now she is amongst the ranks of the very shades who punished Khaenriah. I mean, really, it was her wild creations that wreaked havoc on Teyvat, like Durin, the Rifthounds, and Elinus. Then we have Ronova, the Shade of Death, who is the one who actually cast the curse of immortality that stops all pure-blood Khaenrians from being able to die, no matter what they do to themselves. She is the one who Capitano made his deal with in Natlan, preventing Mawika from having to die for temporarily suspending the power of death over Natlan during the war. He also secured a place of rest in the ley lines for the Khaenriah souls he was carrying with him, and repaired Natlan's Night Kingdom overall. He actually accomplished a lot, and because Ronova is all about death, she seems to be humanity's most hated shade. And last, we have the missing shade, the shade of space, or the void, named Asmodee, who is the one known as the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles. Her job is less clear, but it seems she is in charge of maintaining the boundaries of the different spaces in the world, especially making sure no one leaves Teyvat. She caught the travelers when they were trying to leave, and not only locked them out of going back to their ship, but also mercilessly separated them. But now she's completely missing, and no one knows what even happened to her. Although, it's possible she has switched sides, which is very interesting. The Heavenly Principles, just like Venti, seems to go into a deep sleep every time they use a massive amount of energy, like in the fight against the dragons, and now after the Cataclysm fight. And while Father is away, it seems some of the children are thinking of causing trouble. The Heavenly Principles is hated in the world for a few reasons, but the biggest one is the control over people's destinies, and not simply telling them what to do, but actually dictating everything they will do, both the wicked things they'll do in the world and the punishments they'll get for doing them. But not a lot of people know this. The ones who do are plotting to take him down. But there's a giant flaw in their plan. If you are from Teyvat and have nothing to do with the dragons, then that means you have everything to do with the Heavenly Principles, being one of his creations. And basically, if he hasn't ordained that he can be killed, then no one he created will be able to kill him. Not even a sinner like Sertologi or a shade like Rhinedottir. So this is what makes descenders like the Traveler so important. Powerful people who can move through the world without being controlled by the Heavenly Principles, but yet they could possibly gain enough power to kill him. The Traveler is basically the key to the entire plan. This has been Khaenriah's goal for millennia. Now, Khaenriah is such a big deal, but is kind of mentioned in passing so often that details of it are getting kind of mixed up. So, in the interest of bringing you up to speed, I need to explain them too. 7 nations made up the overworld of Teyvat back in the day. And deep underground, where the sun literally doesn't shine, was the technologically advanced nation of Khaenriah. They were specifically anti-god and prided themselves on reaching where they were under their own power, rather than through any kind of providence from above. They also relied heavily on alchemy for their needs because the nation couldn't really support any kinds of plants or wildlife. They seemed to be the only nation with a well-established monarchy and dynasties. I guess if you aren't being ruled by a god or a god king, then you at least need a plain old king. The older ruling family in Khaenriah was the Crimson Moon dynasty, who were all about using alchemy for everything, from their defenses and weapons to their party tricks. Rifthounds and the Beastmaster Knights who were to control them appeared at this time. But sometime later, a new train of thinking appeared with the more recent Eclipse or Black Sun dynasty. They were much more focused on mechanics, designing ruin guards, giant drilling worms, flying dragon-like weapon machines, and so forth. They were also very focused on conquest. The true name for ruin guards were field tillers, because the land was to be tilled with steel and blood, if they were to have it. They powered these machines with condensed leyline energy and used them in all walks of life. But those in the kingdom who were still looking for a way to get out from under the thumb of the heavenly principles and his shades secretly started messing with the Abyss, a heretical unlimited power that could mean massive change for the nation, and a descender, which they realized would be able to do what they couldn't. They brought in the Abyss Traveler from outer space, named them heir to the throne, and used them to provide themselves Abyss power in spades, hoping for a breakthrough. But the 5 sinners, which also correspond to the 4 shades and the heavenly principles, brought down ruin instead. Every single person in the nation, including those who were staunchly opposed to the meddling with the Abyss, got cursed. Noble Khaenrians were cursed with excruciating immortality, and the people who had left from the 7 Archons' kingdoms and gone to Khaenriah were turned into hilichurls along with their children. Pierro, the head of the Fatui, is one of those Khaenrians, who never agreed with the direction the sinners were going in, but he received punishment all the same. He was once a royal mage of the court of King Ermin, but his warnings against what the sinners were doing were ignored. Now he heads an organization known as the Fools, the Fatui, to hatch a plan with the Tsaritsa to take down the unfair heavenly principles and their tools, the Shades. Interestingly, Pierro says that the Tsaritsa knows his pain. It being a unique suffering he has, then I wonder, what does that say about her? Now, before we move on to all the burning questions this trailer has raised, we need to mention one other place, Nodkrai, the region we're headed to next, which is going to be very important. Nodkrai is a region to the south of Snezhnaya who doesn't appear to adhere to any of the 7 Archons. Instead, some of them actually worship a moon goddess and have built several statues to her. Nodkrai has one of the worst cases of abyss contamination, known as the Wild Hunt, since they were at the front lines of the Cataclysm disaster when it started. Although they are autonomous from the Fatui to the north, sometimes important commands like the Pale Star Edict will be issued from the Tsaritsa that they can't ignore. The Pale Star Edict has summoned all harbingers to Nodkrai for an extremely important task. The nation of Nodkrai seems to be something of a hodgepodge of differing factions, most of them looking for a release from the constraints of whatever previous rulership they were under, all living up to the true spirit of the original founder of Nodkrai. Believe it or not, Nodkrai was the dream of the first treasure hoarder, legendary international thief Reed Miller. He wanted to create a world without boundaries, a paradise for people like him. He was executed for his crimes before he could see it through, but his friend, one of the original Lightkeepers of Nodkrai, who are the faction that keep the Wild Hunt at bay, fulfilled his dream and founded the land that is to be center stage in the coming months. The last but very important tidbit about this place is that the faction who worship the moon goddess, the Frost Moon Scions, are now tied up with the damselette, number 3 of the Fatui Harbingers, and it's not clear if she's there of her own volition or if they have perhaps kidnapped her somehow, or whether this turn of events is because she is the moon goddess. So now, everyone is on the same page, more or less. So why don't we break down the trailer itself now? Because there is something to discuss in every scene. When the old lady is describing each of the shades and how their particular ideal brooks no reason, I think she is hinting at the idea that since they are just the respective ideal, like death or time, without reason, then they really are just a set of rules. There's no specific thoughts or reasoning that goes into any of their decisions, just cold rules. The power of erudition has been left to the Primordial One himself. And this place we first see is creepy as hell too. Just a field and a tree that are apparently a space made by the missing Asmodee. Based on the conversation between them all here, it seems they're moving through these spaces looking for traces of her because she's been gone since the interaction with the travelers. Of course, Rhine had to dump a few test subjects in it to see if it's as unstable as it seems. The way Ronova tells her to stop messing up other people's space with her nasty things is so prissy sister nagging at the older rebellious one. I don't know about you all, but Rhinedottir's callous disregard for life really gives me the creeps. Seems like the power she has from Naberius now can actually create souls, because she just picked up the one left behind by the old lady she made and extinguished it. If not, then she was actually using and killing a real soul, which is even worse. I don't think anyone in that space were real people though. Just hastily thrown together some things to test a theory. What's really standing out to me about that whole sequence though, with the discussion between them all, is that space they were in was shown to be just another cube among many. And if you look closely at the background where all the other cubes are, it's an asteroid field out there, as though all these pocket dimensions are all floating in space in an empty spot. But you know what else comes to mind about this? Domains. I think the domains that we can travel to are all separate spaces that are joined by these special doorways we can teleport to, which is a form of space manipulation too, by the way. And what's more is the space at the bottom of the chasm where the divine nail is also harbors a weird pocket space where everything behaves strangely. Time passed weirdly, you didn't get hungry, and you couldn't get out by any normal means. During the cataclysm, this helped Liyue to overcome the deluge of monsters. But when Ito, Yelan, and friends got stuck down there, that wasn't fun. Guess what though? Zhongli, who I suspect derives his powers from the principles of the void, was able to reach in and take them out. Ito too, another powerful Geo user, was able to do more to break through the space than any of the rest, even though it took so much out of him. And all these spaces are called domains. Time doesn't move inside of artifact domains properly either. This chasm space that helped with the Abyss invasion has me thinking that each shade helped the nation closest to their ideal during the cataclysm to give them a leg up. Secretly. Asmodee to Geo, a pocket dimension to trap monsters. Ronova to Pierro in Natlan, power over death to sustain their armies. Naberius to Hydra and Dendro, the flora and fauna of life, giving them the power to reinforce the boundary between life and death with the massive flower of life. Ishtaroth to Anemo and Electro, literally winds of time and eternity. Time travel was the key to saving Inazuma, but we don't know who or if anyone helped the Cryo Nation, and this could be why the Tsaritsa is so angry. If the Heavenly Principles ordained a mass casualty event and then prevented any help from coming, then yeah. And since Neshnaya is right next to Nodkrai, they probably took a major hit. In fact, if Venti is so close to the Shades, so much so that the voice actress for him is the same as Ishtaroth in every language, then Venti may be closer to the Heavenly Principles overall. Much more than the Tsaritsa can tolerate. Venti says she hasn't spoken to him in 500 years, and she had his gnosis taken away most violently. I also think it should be pointed out that when Venti is in his full form, he can be described as androgynous too, as in not looking particularly male or female, just like the primordial one. I'm just saying. Another detail I need to point out before we talk about the suspicious statue in Inazuma is the fact that the Shade of Life has digital motifs everywhere. Like Naberius/Rhinedottir are manipulating data. Now, I don't know how many of you have noticed how much Dendro is a digital looking element and Irminsul is looking like a gigantic data storage system, but the similarities are unmistakable. Like Teyvat is a giant system or simulation. And as a bonus to those of you who also play HSR Story, let me bring your attention to the fact that the similarities between the worlds of Amphoreus and Teyvat after the latest Trailblaze quest are kinda through the roof now. Sealed off world that is hidden from prying eyes. Check. Experiences a constantly repeating history. Check. Its history can be calculated mathematically. Check. Remember Narcissan Cruise's world formula calculation that allowed him to predict doomsday to the second? Is covered by a false sky that breaks into data-like squares? Check. Is run by an overseer who controls the fate of everyone? Check. And that overseer is aligned with the path of reason, or in HSR's case, erudition, which is the same thing. Check. Even if they aren't in the same universe, it's almost absurd to think the writers aren't deliberately leaving us clues at this point. So, my wild theory now, after seeing what Paimon went through, his living through the millions of loops and how cold and callous they made him, is that what if Teyvat is also a simulation? Just like how the Academia were running a lengthy simulation of one constant day to collect data and power in the Sumeru Archon quest. The Aranara mention a machine that extracts memories that they're afraid of. What if the Heavenly Principles is running this constant simulation, looking for a particular outcome, and until he finds it, the loop or samsaras will continue. And no one retains their memory from one loop to the next except descenders like him. And by whatever millionth loop this is, he's as cold and detached from humanity as it gets. Dainsleif calls this place a sheltered eternity. I think it's worth a deeper look. And speaking of eternity, in the land of eternity, something very interesting stands erected right outside of Tenshukaku Palace, the statue of the omnipresent god. Of course, the things that stand out the most are the wings full of eyes that definitely belong to Ronova. But then you all noticed other things too. The hood is like the Shade of Life's, and the necklace is similar to Ishtaroth's. So then that means this statue is representing all of the shades except the missing one, Asmodee. So 2 questions arise from this. Why is Raiden so well informed and respectful of the shades, commissioning this statue fairly recently, possibly when she began the Vision Hunt decree, and called it the symbol of eternity? And second, why is the ruler of space missing from its design? Depending on when Raiden gathered the information to give to her builders, it may be that the Fort Shade has been removed from the roster. Maybe because she's missing, or has potentially switched sides, then now she has no part in the portrayal of eternity. She's literally not a shade anymore at all. But still, where could she be? The others would know if she were dead or devoured, right? Many say that this more points to her being Paimon in disguise, and I'll admit that there are many hints to her being able to be shrunken Asmodee. But also not. Paimon, yes, can manipulate space to a certain degree by disappearing and reappearing at will. And she is very, very loyal to the Traveler. One could call them her master, but kinda not. She also has many design elements in common with the Shades, like that three-pointed symbol on her belly. But on the other hand, she has her own very significant and important name. And names are everything in Teyvat. She's also been seen by Ronova before, and there was no recognition whatsoever. I'm sure they would be able to sense her even in shrunken form. But that doesn't mean she couldn't be a brand new shade in the making, commissioned by the Heavenly Principles just before he went to sleep, and she just doesn't know it yet. Because Asmodee has been dismissed. What if she wasn't supposed to keep the problematic travelers, descenders that could potentially cause problems, inside of Teyvat, and she's been punished already? Which then led her to switch sides because of the unfairness of it all. What if the reason we haven't seen a certain someone else yet is because we'd be able to put 2 and 2 together too easily? What if the previous Cryo-Archon, Bel-Isar, or the White King, who still has followers in Nodkrai in the present day, died in the Cataclysm like so many others? Then the new Archon that took over wasn't just any old person, but instead the disgraced Asmodee. What if that's why the Tsaritsa and Pierro have so much confidence to take down the Heavenly Principles? And in terms of a new master, there are other things out there, like the Cryo Dragon instead. Yeah, I know it's a lot of what ifs, but you have to admit it has some appeal. Something else I noticed about the Fatui is that what Pierro said about looking at the gods and receiving retribution connects with something a different Fatui operative said. The one who was experimenting on kids in Sumeru's Vimara village. He basically said that Fatui wear masks for crowns so they can disrespect the gods. Is he implying that they wear masks to be able to look up at Celestia with contempt and take no punishment? And on that note, is the cost for doing that an eye? Is that why Ermin was called the One-Eyed King? Is that why Pierro has one eye covered now, when he so clearly had both of them when he was glaring at Ronova? Was Kaya mimicking his old granddaddy when he used to cover that eye as a kid? Before it was actually burned. And yeah, Pierro is not Kaya's confirmed relative or anything, but the eye resemblance is distinct. And Pierro has an interestingly blue lock of hair amongst his dashing grays that looks really, really similar to Kaya's. There's just so much to talk about, including all those beautiful environments we're going to see in Nodkrai. The world quests and story quests of this place are going to be insane. But this video is getting too long. So here's what I'm gonna do. If you still have questions about the lore itself, then bombard me with them all. I'm going to do my best to answer every comment as it comes in. And if you have theories, share it, because the discussion in the community is one of the best parts of these lore drops. In the near future, I may be about to try out live streaming, and we can have some real fun then. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, as always, like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed. And I'll see you pretty soon in the next one.